Welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Nick Smith, president of Loud Canvas Media, full services marketing agency with 400 active clients. That's a lot of clients. Welcome to the show, Nick.
AJ, thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here today.
You are welcome. Welcome to the show. Welcome to India in this online form. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are talking right now. We'll be talking about mastering omni-channel marketing and so many things along with that. But before we come to this part, let's understand a bit about your journey, your background, a lot of learning to happen from that itself. So, a bit about your journey, please.
Thank you so much. Sure. Well, my approach to the marketing world is maybe a little bit different than the traditional approach. I think many times, you might start going to school for business or marketing or a specialty in communications, and then you'll find yourself working at an agency, and then kind of slowly gaining your experience that way. And mine was really on the ground, growing brands at the ground level and in some of the most harshest conditions. And so in the Northeast of the United States, we have what's known as the least church region of the United States. It means that the least amount of people go to church in that region of all of the other regions in the United States. And so I cut my teeth in marketing by helping nonprofits, helping churches grow, by planning churches, by learning the different communities and the different cultures, the different needs. And it was wonderful because I got to see so many different faces, from doctors and lawyers to those who are maybe suffering from drug addictions or homelessness. And seeing the human lived experience from so many different perspectives allowed me to be maybe a more well-rounded marketer than something that I could have just learned out of the books.
Right, right. And then from being a pastor to into pharma, into marketing, help us a bit about that transition. A lot of people just are not able to transition even in the basic job change if they have to do it in the same industry. For you, it was a much different sort of a thing, not much hard up. So I want to understand that a bit. Why and what was going on in your mind? Did you think of how will you work it out? It can be a very difficult thing, but did that. I want to understand a bit about your mindset along with the learnings that you had from your past things
Wow.
as part of a church.
Yeah, I so appreciate that. It was very much an identity shift for me, and it took and is still taking many seasons to work through. What does it mean to move out of such a passionate and purpose-driven career path into what some might say is a more cutthroat, kind of business corporate mindset? And I really have to go back to the simplicities of the human experience. For me, it's all about the reality that every single one of us is a human, whether we're talking about audience groups, segmentation points. In the healthcare space, that could mean something like physicians or patients, whoever you're talking to. The reality is they're just people. And behind every single, number, behind every single audience type or every single segmentation point, ideal customer profile, if you will, is just a human like you and me that's living a human experience and that has shared core components. And so, for me, my lived human experience transitioning out of the ministry world and focusing primarily on marketing as a whole, specifically transitioning into the pharma side of things, healthcare marketing, was one of transformation for myself, was one of understanding the human experience and the lived realities that you go through, like you were saying, in terms of mindset shifts, the fears that you have when looking at transitioning a career like that. I have a family and I have daughters. And so, the financial insecurities that can come from making such a large shift. And I think, the reality is that being in touch with that human experience allows us to provide marketing that serves our audiences better. That allows us to provide marketing that actually helps to serve a need that they may be facing or an aspiration they're hoping to achieve, as opposed to just trying to get them to buy or consume, whatever it is that we may be trying to sell. And so, for me, the transition is very much one that's still taking effect in my life. And, at the core of it, it comes down to each and every one of us wanting to have fulfillment and purpose in our lives. Um, and so, as I kind of journey through that and find purpose and fulfillment in my own life, I try to look at all marketing through that same lens, knowing that each of us are living our own human experience.
Right, right, Nick. Now, why pharma? And then why marketing? I mean, I want to understand that thinking process so that people who are wanting to make those transitions can learn a bit from your thought process at that point in time.
Yeah, I think, in looking at where can you make the biggest impact and where can you find the most fulfillment, for me, looking back at my past, I spent almost all of my days in the church world helping people overcome mental obstacles that they were facing, spiritual crises they may be facing, all the way down to the most sensitive of moments in a person's life, things like losing a loved one. Or getting married or having a baby is some of the most celebratory ones. And so similarly, if you look at the healthcare space, the core mission remains the same, which is to help people, to help sick patients find medicine and therapies that will work for them. And to help doctors and physicians who do great work have the ability to do their work and have their work known, so that way other patients who would benefit from their practice may have the ability to experience the work that they do. And so for me, it's a few things. In the church world, one of the things that I noticed is that I needed to have that purpose and that fulfillment in my life, and people and helping people achieve their goals are one of the ways that works for me. So if you're looking to make a career transition, or you're kind of looking at what do I want to do in the next year, 5 years, 10 years of my life, I would just say, what is your dreams? What are your aspirations? What are you good at? Where can you make the most impact? And how can you provide the best value and the best service to those who are around you? And so if you're to do a kind of a Venn diagram, if you will, and you look at the skill sets and the things that I learned from being a part of that church planting initiative, we grew it to the fifth fastest growing church in America. Marketing was certainly a big component of that I knew I was as capable in, and I knew that there was a way to use it in terms of good as opposed to just manipulation. And so I knew that was a core component that I would probably want to keep as I transitioned out of that ministerial role. And then also, again, that core component of people and helping people. And so, now not only am I helping people through the client brands that I serve, and the influence there is the impact on millions of lives, but I also get to work with the people that put out that great work every single day, my creative teams, my strategists, my developers, and we get to do that kind of award-winning, life-changing work together. And that keeps my day-to-day very exciting. It keeps me fulfilled, which is part of the reasons why I knew this would be a transition that I would be excited about and would be able to give my all to, which I think is important if you want to be successful in anything that you're doing.
Right, Nick. Right. Now, whenever you make a transition, especially work transition, you always look at the past connections that you can, work through, work with, and take into your whatever you are doing next. In your case, you'd have to start from almost zero. Or were there any connections from your church work that you could carry into business? How did it work for you?
Um, I think I'm a very analytical person. And so even when making decisions, how I make decisions, I'm pretty thoughtful. I like to write things out. I'm a strategist at heart. And so, in some ways it was strategic. I knew that some of the core competencies that I had developed in communication, in audience segmentation, and then in the ability to put together a team and processes that create the creative that goes into just what we did on a weekly basis. I knew that all of those core competencies matched well with the traditional marketing and communications agency world. And so that was a little bit more of a softer transition, a little bit easier of a transition for me, because I was already aware of, different file types and how we create things. And so what I needed to learn primarily was, the industries that made the most sense to apply them to. And a lot of that comes down to opportunities. And so I had the opportunity to learn at one of the largest healthcare pharmaceutical agencies in the world. And, through that opportunity, I really was able to learn the different components of what goes into the complexities of the healthcare industry. And so through just spending time in that space, there is no there's no substitute for hard work and for time, right? And so by having the ability to spend time in that space and be saturated in that space, and learn about what best in class looks like and what good looks like, from there you're able to build upon it. And so as I look back at the past, it was primarily just those key components. I knew that there were some hard skills that I had: communications, creative development, things of that nature. And I also knew there were some soft skills that I had: resonating with people, communicating with people, wanting the best for people, and helping them to find out what their next steps are in order to continue to see the best of them come out. And so, again, marrying those two things together, healthcare is right in there. You have private owned practices, physicians who own their own practices, who do such incredible work. They're high achievers, but they went to school, for maybe surgery. They went to med school for surgery. They didn't go to school for marketing and communications. They're changing lives. They're on the ground floor every single day, changing lives for better patient outcomes every single day. And they have problems in terms of, how do I scale my business? How do I acquire more patients? How do I keep my patients after I've acquired them? How do I communicate with them effectively without spending countless hours on administrative tasks? And those things weigh down on them and on their mental health. And so, again, for me, the work that I do now is an extension of the work that I've always done, which is helping people. Only the modality of the expression by which we're working right now is only a little bit different.
Absolutely, you are being modest, only a bit different, but the fact of on the ground is that there are huge demands from clients nowadays, and yours is, when you talk of pharma, there is a lot of demand. How
Sure.
do you how do you obviously you talk about the good things that you bring about from your earlier uh, experience from being in a church. How do you then meet up with the expectations of your clients, because they may like you, but their work may demand to be very, a lot of things from you. How does that
Sure.
work? Does your past understanding of people become a challenge for you in this difficult world where there is so much of demand, or does it work in favor of you?
I think you could look at that from two perspectives. You could look at that from a business perspective. You could look at that from a personal perspective. I think the
Right.
end of the day, you find yourself at the same outcome. Um, I really approach everything from a human centric perspective first, and so business is so important. And if the business and the dollars and cents make sense and it works, then I want to find mutually productive partnerships where we're adding value, where we like working with clients. We go through a kind of a discovery session with anybody that we work with to make sure that they align on our values and on our principles. Because one of the most difficult challenges in terms of putting out award-winning work or best-in-class work that's going to move the needle forward for our client brands, is you have to have the teams who like to do that type of work. And so you're right. There's a tremendous amount of pressure, not in the healthcare industry, but in many industries, especially those that are heavily regulated and have compliance concerns. And the demands of what best in class looks like and what putting out award-winning work looks like have to be balanced with, does the team enjoy the work that they're doing? Is this client a good partnership for us from a business perspective long term? And can we do what it is that the client's asking us to do? Luckily, being in the space and having, you could say it's even providential, but I grew up in upstate New York, in Saratoga Springs, New York, and it's kind of a little hub for healthcare experts. And so there's all sorts of creatives and strategists and content writers that live in the small hometown that I grew up in upstate New York. And so I'm blessed enough to have a wide enough variety of team members and experts, a deep enough bench where we've worked on, some of the most complex issues with some of the largest brands in the world, that we usually can help, and if we can't, then we just don't take the project, right? Customer satisfaction is really important to us. Client delight is extremely important to us. And we work day and night for our partners. So I think having that as the foundation and knowing that we expect that same level of commitment from the clients that we work with, we're not here just to do a project and be done with it. We really want to be invested in your brand. We want our teams to love the work that they do and see the value and the mission that you're working on, and we want to join you in that mission. And if we can't, it's okay. We just won't do it, right? So we try not to put ourselves in those situations.
Right, right. Now, how did you get to 400 active clients? That's a lot of things. What is the secret to your success on this part? People are always on the lookout for lead generation for new clients. How did you manage to have this?
Well, this is a multi factored, sort of question as well. I think in anything, I'll give you a little bit of the history around Loud Canvas. Sean is our founder, Sean Dempsey, and he is one of the best just people persons that you'll ever meet. Right? He loves people. If you put him in a room, everyone loves being around him. And so much of our growth is accredited to our founder, to Sean. He was growing this business from the ground up. We started primarily as a web development company, application development, and support. And so a lot of the clients that we began to work with were small, medium-sized businesses. And so we've actually started a campaign, an initiative that we call Madison to Maine. Back in the 20s through the 60s, Madison Avenue was the mecca for marketing. It was the first time in history that you had all the advertising agencies with the top 100 brands, all on one street. And that's where we get Mad Men from, the TV series, and all these advertising greats that we look up to and think back to. But the reality is that for many of Main Street America brands, they didn't have access to these high-end strategies. They didn't have the resources to employ these executive creatives, and they didn't have the strategies or know the strategies that were required or the resources required to build the technology in order to implement such of the strategies that were being done that deliver such great results for these big Madison Avenue style brands. And so, at the heartbeat of Loud Canvas is we want to take what we know works in the largest settings with the biggest companies in the world, and we want to provide access to small mom and pops, to the Main Street America clients that need it most, that are the backbone of our country. I grew up, with two entrepreneurial parents. My mom was an early childhood educator and ran a daycare, as well as was the executive director of a museum. And my dad started a restaurant in our hometown and grew that restaurant. And I watched firsthand just how they were good at what they were doing. But knowing what I know now, I wish I could have helped them so much more. The reality was they just didn't have access, and they didn't have the resources that could have helped them to grow so much larger. And so with Madison to Maine, that's our objective, is to take that same work that we're doing with these largest companies and bring them down to an accessible point to Main Street America. So, in terms of how that plays into the overall growth strategy of our company, well, we manage over 1,000 websites. We have over, 400 individual clients. We partner with agencies. We partner with Main Street America, mom and pop, businesses. And we work with, again, some of those larger companies, more nationally recognized brands. And slowly but surely, if you don't lose your clients on the back end, our average retention rate is a little over 7 years. If you don't lose those clients on the back end, that becomes a snowball effect.
Right, right. There is much to understand, much to learn from you, Nick. So, for those people who would want to learn more from you, about your company, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
Thank you. Yeah, you can always visit us at loudcanvas.com, loudcanvas.com. And I actually have a chatbot set up there. It's a picture of me, and I'm on the other end of that chat. And so if you have a question, or you like to set up a time to talk a little bit more about the particular business use cases you have, and some things that might work to help unleash the next stage of your growth, head over there, loudcanvas.com, and I would love to talk with you.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.